Looks to come inside and find one, a goal, and find the back of the net for Perth.
And the Azzurri have come back from 2 goals down to tie it up.
Cue the celebrations for the Azzurri.
(2025) in the NPLWA women's competition is the year of the Azzurri, a maiden league title for Perth Soccer Club in the NPL era as they finally reach the top of the mountain and claim a history-making piece of silverware to add to their existing decorated collection at Dorrien Gardens.
Well, there we have it, exactly how it sounded as it all went down on Wednesday night at Grindleford Reserve. NPL Women's League Champions. How good does that sound, Azzurri fans? Welcome to the Perth SC podcast, episode 20 for 2025, all powered, of course, by Lydia Fiore and the team at the Panorama Club, Perth's premier private members club, a luxury workspace, and also Camera House in Leederville, your go-to destination for Leederville and the wider Perth creative community, providing expert advice and a comprehensive range of photography and video equipment. A massive episode, as you can imagine. First of all, a massive congratulations, Tom Glebovich and the Azzurri Girls. What an absolutely stunning season. And of course, all topped off by that big win on Wednesday evening down there at Grindleford Reserve. Taking it out against fierce rivals Balcatta, no doubt, at a wet and cold Grindleford Reserve. It was their round 6 makeup fixture, but, it didn't matter because it was a 3-0 result. Goals to Daisy McAllister, Jess Flannery and Maya Archibald. And here's how it sounded, all thanks to Football West.
And we're closing in on a start in this one, and back in March these two sides faced off in the night series final, and at that point many expected a wide open title race to unfold in 2025. As it's transpired though, Perth have stormed away and are now on the precipice of winning a first title in the NPL era. As McAllister sees Bennett off her line, first time strikes in, and the Azzurri are ahead. A brilliantly instinctive effort from McAllister, and Perth get the goal they need to edge closer to wrapping up this title. It's Balcatta 0, Perth 1. McAllister into that right channel, first time cross for Flannery. 2-0 Perth. And it's their leading scorer, Jess Flannery, who gets the second. And they're almost there now. Balcatta 0, Perth 2. And now there's space to exploit. McAllister looks like she's offside, so Mathers has got to keep carrying the ball for now. Flannery, first time into the box. Oh, it's going to break to Archibald! Party time for Perth! There's going to be a new name on the NPLWA women's title in season 2025. Three goals, 3 points, and league glory confirmed. Balcatta 0, Perth 3. Runners-up in each of the past 3 seasons, but 2025 in the NPLWA women's competition is the year of the Azzurri, a maiden league title for Perth Soccer Club in the NPL era as they finally reach the top of the mountain and claim a history-making piece of silverware to add to their existing decorated collection at Dorrien Gardens.
Yeah, there we have it. Beautifully called there by the great Tommy Dolman. And, it just topped off what was a magnificent season for the Azzurri Girls. Have a load of this. 2 games in hand to win till the end of the season. So 19 matches played, 16 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. Here's the big one. 59 goals for, 11 against, a goal difference of plus 48. and cracking the magic 50 mark in season 2025. You can't get much better than that. It was an absolutely outstanding season, and despite there still being a little bit of time to go in the regular season, well, it's all run and won. A first women's NPL title for the Perth Soccer Club, making it all round a nice figure of 27 total league titles for the Perth Soccer Club. So an outstanding effort. A big congratulations. I'm sure the celebrations are going to be going throughout the week. There is a couple of games in hand and still the matter of the top 4 cup. So we can't get too carried away at this stage, but ultimately, enjoy that one, Azzurri fans. It was an absolutely outstanding effort, and I caught up a little bit earlier on with Ben Gilby actually to chat about the women's season. Of course, Ben works for Impetus Football and also writes the match reports for the women's program as well. So I'm going to catch up with Ben in just a few minutes. Just before we get into that, elsewhere, it wasn't a great outing for the senior men on the weekend, comprehensively beaten. In fact, it wasn't even the weekend, it was throughout the week on a Tuesday evening, comprehensively beaten by a little bit of a star-studded Perth Glory side, it must be said. There was plenty of A-League contracted players in that side, and, they were just far too strong for the Azzurri on this occasion. Looking towards our other teams, well, it was a 4-3 win for our 23s men over Perth Glory. Goals to Jamie Bilolowski, Matthew Palella, Evan Morehouse and Daniel Zivkovic. So big congratulations to the guys there. For our 18s men, unfortunately, they went down 3-2 to Perth Glory on the weekend, but Harry Surtees, another outstanding performance there, scoring a brace in that 3-2 loss. And finally, for our women's 21s, that was a massive win, in fact, a 4-0 win over Perth Red Star. Goals to Grace Warburton, Elsa Zindel, Macy McCready and Alyssa Klopp. So there we go, all of the results from our senior sides on the weekend. But we are celebrating that big league title. We're going to get into our chat next. Ben Gilby to join us. With Ben Gilby. Great to have Ben back in Perth, of course, writer for Impetus Football, and been doing a great job of all the match reports so far this season for the Perth Soccer Club, and he'll be absolutely stoked to see the result last night, of course, or on Wednesday night, no matter where you are listening to this. Of course, the big news this week is the women's side taking out the First Division title, the NPLWA title for the first time. Ben, fantastic to have you with us, mate. Welcome back to Perth.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Blaine.
First of all, mate, a fantastic end for the Perth Soccer Club, particularly the women's team.
It was. I mean, I think last night kind of summed up a lot of things about the team season, because it was a horrific night conditions-wise. You know, it was torrential rain, it was blowing a gale, and it's always tough to play Balcatta anyway. There's so many former Perth players in that Balcatta team. There's obviously Pete Rakic, who was head coach at 2023 as well, so you throw all that into the mix, and then the team go down there in those conditions and just pull off an incredible victory with some stunning goals as well. That just sort of summed up the team ethic, I think, from the women's team this season for me.
It was an interesting year, and I think overall, even just watching from home, there was a huge sense of relief because of the history. As you've said, they've come so close so many times, and it had to be a matter of when and not if.
It did. Last season was, I think, unfortunate because they got that Red Star monkey off their back in those games, because they had back-to-back games against them at the end of last season in the the State Cup final, and then the first finals week of the Top 4 Cup, and then obviously playing them again in the final again. And it was that I think the key things this year have been the fact that they've been able to get those consistent wins against the likes of Red Star. Because they've now had 3 wins in a row against them in the league this season, scoring quite a few goals in the process against them as well. And I think that's... Red Star may not be the team necessarily that they were last season, but they've still, they've got that history. They're the name in the state, and they are the women's team that you need to be a champion team in WA, and the fact that they've done it in those 3 games now, I mean that's a massive statement in itself, I think.
Obviously, the history with Balcatta, you mentioned there that plenty of ex-players, Pete Rakic, who was at the helm of Perth, was it maybe a little bit sweeter for Perth to win it under those circumstances down there at Balcatta?
Possibly. Although, of course, you can always say that if you look at the team that we put out last night, not that many were around, obviously.
Sure.
A lot of them are new even for this season. So there is that aspect of it. But I think, to be honest, any time you win your first state league title is going to be bloody good wherever you win it, to be honest, isn't it?
And just, I guess, reflecting a little bit further back on why this victory is such a sweet one. I mean, hearing the stories from Jason Marocchi and Danny O'Brogan at the start of last season, that they were barely scraping a side together, and to go so close, as I said, on previous occasions, it kind of... it felt like it was just their time, Perth, for me. They managed to weather a few storms throughout the season. They were challenged not only by Red Star and Balcatta, but they had some really fierce battles with the likes of Fremantle, Subiaco, even late on Mum FC and UWA, where they really had to be on their games to ensure that they could, make it to that finishing line, and they did it in outstanding fashion. Of course, in the end, it's 10 or 12 points clear at the moment. It does wrap up the title, but still some games to be played. But just back on my point, I guess they did have to weather those storms throughout the season.
They did. I think we also need to mention the Football West Academy as well, because they've had, for a pretty big new cohort for them this season. You never quite know each season where they're going to go, how good, how strong they're going to be, and they've been absolutely outstanding this year. And you've seen that with the couple of players they've had called into the Junior Matildas over the last month or so as well. But I think the thing for me this year is it's very much been a team thing that's done it, because if you look at a lot of the teams up the top, most of their goals have been scored by maybe 2 players. If you, I think our top score is got 11 goals, I think, off the top of my head. So the goals have been shared around that team in terms of where we are offensively. But then, you look at the ridiculous stats we've got defensively. The goal that went in at the very end last night by Izzy Folletta, that's only the 11th league goal that we've conceded in 19 games this season. And that defence is, I've sort of called it the brick wall throughout the season, because it's a mixture of a couple of very, very experienced players, but also some really, really young heads there. With Dal Schroeder at the back, who's last year she had probably, I would say last year was probably the best season she'd had when she was at Freo, and she's had that defence in front of her this year. But when she's been called on, like last night, a couple of times in those horrific conditions, she's just been outstanding as well. It's a real team championship, I think, this year.
I guess just to illustrate that a little bit more, I think Ella Lincoln had 29 goals on her own last season. So to spread those out, and it's something that I've spoken to the players around on previous episodes, is just that spread. If there is a 5-goal haul, there's usually 5 different goal scorers, and it's led by the same names as Daisy McAllister, Sam Mathers, Jess Flannery, and these kind of players just week in, week out. That midfield core, while we're here, Daisy McAllister's been outstanding this year. It was also always just a little bit of a worry on how she would go without her, dynamic duo of Charlie Wainwright alongside her and a couple of the other players that moved on elsewhere, mate. But who were some of the standouts for you throughout the season?
Yeah, I think also we need to sort of throw Maya Archibald into the equation as well, because, particularly sort of at Red Star last weekend, she was winning physical battles in the middle of the park that someone of her physicality has got absolutely no right to be winning at all, which was phenomenal. She was out there and really deadly finish last night as well. Hopefully the knock that she got not long after the goal is proves to be not too serious. So big shout out for her. I mean, Jess Flannery has been Jess Flannery. She's just immense. I mean, just seeing her ability down the flank, but also the quality of the balls into the box is a big part of her game as well. But then the unselfishness to get back to defend when she needs to as well, which that's a quality that not a massive amount of attackers have. But you've got to shout out the defence. I mean, April Nosson and Kim McCartney have just, Matilda Bowman, not just in her defending, but in the sort of the quality of the balls that she can put forward to those in front of her is on another level.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's so and I know now that I'll think back in a couple of hours' time. I think, I should have mentioned that play. That play. But there's been so much to like, I think, because there hasn't been one or two strong players. It's been done with the team ethic, I think.
Yeah, and I will just point out a couple of players that I think have been brilliant and just no-nonsense types of players. They just get in no matter where they're told to play and they get a job done. And one for me is Ruby Marshall, whether she's deep at fullback or whether she's thrown up front to cause a little bit of chaos. I think she fits in just seamlessly everywhere. I was really glad that she got a few minutes last night, because I think she's been one of the hearts and souls of this side that just, as I said, just gritty, just gets stuck in and gets the job done. And another one for me was Hannah Collins, who, whether it's playing at 6, at 8, at centre half to fill in from time to time, was another one that just seems to get a job done. Tom Glavovich obviously came into this setup, and I remember having a chat with both himself and Fernando Barrero, and having the change in mindset, obviously coming across from the NTC, where it's all about development and it's all about just getting those players to the next level so they can go on to a great professional career, hopefully. But when you're at a club like Perth, and they both said to me, look, it's about winning now. This is the ultimate. I mean, it's a totally different mentality for these guys to step into this role this season. It
is, and it's interesting because I've spoken to probably most of the first team squad for various features for the club's website this season, and all of them sort of almost without prompting mention the impact that Tom has had on them this season in terms of the bonds that's been created amongst the team, and sort of both on and off the pitch as well, and the importance of that, and how a lot of the again, there was a lot of new faces that had to come in this year, a lot of new faces, and they've pretty much all said that they felt pretty much right from the go that it was the ethos and the ethics. They felt something here that they haven't necessarily felt before. So I think that goes a long way in terms of what you've done. We also need to recognise this is Tom's first senior coaching gig as well. And he's taken out the title in his first year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think just on that team culture and that cohesion, it probably should have taken longer for a lot of these players to fit in. Whether it's a couple that came across and graduated through the NTC, whether it was your senior players that had been there for a little while, and your Nocents and your Matilda Boehms and your Daisy McAllisters, or even if it's a couple that have come through the Perth development system, and of course with the cohort that came down from Carramar as well. So, a phenomenal job to be able to get this culture, and I echo your sentiment, because it is something that when I have chatted to the players on the podcast, the new ones have gone, this is unbelievable, we've never had this kind of culture before. And I think a lot of that doesn't have to go actually to Tom and the players, but a lot of it's got to come from the club itself. I mean, just to give everyone a little bit more of a snapshot about what a week looks like. Every Thursday night, it doesn't matter whether you're playing 18s men, 18s women, or senior men or senior women, everyone comes down for a meal, everyone sits together, everyone mingles, they have a chat, they have a laugh, and this goes a long, long way, Ben, to cohesion on match day.
Yeah, and I think the even bigger thing that comes out of that is the fact that it's the men's and the women's. It's the one club ethos, isn't it? Which you don't have it. You don't have that everywhere, and that's it says a message, isn't it? It says we're Perth Soccer Club.
I guess just as how important is this for Perth Soccer Club? Do you feel obviously a first NPLWA title in 77 years? It'll make it 27 for the club, 26 men's, and now the one women's plus the cup as well. Obviously, it's a real. It feels for me, and I'll ask you the same question, but it feels for me like a real signal of intent on the potential that this club's got, particularly in the women's program.
Definitely, it's massively important for the league that there's a new league champion. Because up until now, in the NPL era, it's been just the two teams that have taken out the main league title. So having a third in the 6 years the league's been going is, that's important. It's important that you can see that a club can come into the NPL as Perth did, and gradually build until you've earned that. So that could be something that the other teams that are looking to come in, your likes of Mandurah and Sorrento could look at and have that incremental building. But I think it's massively important that there are more opportunities. And Perth have got that really good sort of young, sort of girls system and junior system as well. So now there is that aspirational.
It's become a destination club not only for men but for women as well now.
Yeah, the aspiration is there for you can come there. Well, they've won the title this year. Can I come there and can I win silverware at this club as well? Which is something for the youngsters.
Just to open the conversation a little bit more broadly, Ben, how have you seen the competition as a whole this year?
I think it's been, in some respects, it's been that bit closer. In other respects, there's still a big gap between sort of 8-7 and
can we call it the haves and have-nots?
We can do. I mean, and Subiaco have clearly been improving year on year in terms of where they are now compared to where they were when the competition started. But it's now for the likes of them making that jump from 6th place to 5th. That's a monumental gap that somehow you've got to plug. So we've got the situation where we've got 5 strong teams in the 5, that are well worth competing for the top 4. We've got Subiaco who are established as the 6th best team. Hopefully, next season they can build that bit more and close the gap a bit more. And then you've got the bottom 2, and again we'll see if there is promotion at the end of the season, which it looks like, fingers crossed, in terms of aspirational.
That was going to be my next question. Is the talent pool big enough to be able to cater for a promotion and relegation type scenario?
I think it depends on the aspirations of the teams concerned. Because there are teams in State League 1 who are very keen to come up and who are looking to put things in place to come up. There's other teams that are around the top of the table in the State League 1 that aren't in a position to come up for various reasons, but they just don't fancy making the step, or for whatever reason. So I think it depends on the team, and it depends on what they can offer, what they can bring to the table, and I guess like anything, it's the reality of putting the aspirations into practice.
I guess the concerning part for me when you do go to some clubs, and this isn't I'm not drilling any particular club here, but it's just a big observation, is when you go and there's only 1 or 2 on the bench, and it's kind of a little bit of a sign to say, hold on a second, we might not have the depth to be able to cater for a full under-21s as well as a full senior women's side. We do know that there's crossover, but that's the kind of standout points to me between the clubs that can really kind of go on, is just that depth, and the clubs that won't be able to. Yeah,
I mean, I would say that's not necessarily just a Perth problem. I would say certainly, in England, if you look at the sort of maybe tiers 3 and 4 in England, where there's clubs in those divisions that have got quite a bit of financial backing. There's also clubs that are independent and have got little to no backing. And you will find some clubs at that level in England that sometimes don't have anyone on the bench, for example. So I think there's a wider discussion there still about women's football and how we can get it to grow more widely. Because I think the issue we've got with women's football now is at the very top level, the money is getting there, but we've still got a really big issue about that money filtering down. It's not kind of going down it's going down in a funnel shape, if you like. Yeah. So I think the top 3 or 4 clubs are they've got money, they can bring in players and they can build each year. But beneath that, there's still a big struggle. And I think people will see the headlines that women's football is doing great things, which absolutely it is. It's in a different ballpark compared to 5 years ago. Yeah. But there are still a lot of clubs and a lot of players who are doing it tough, and that needs to be recognised still.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is it time that we look at a more equitable distribution system when it comes to your ex-A League players that go back to NPL level, or does it need some kind of point salary cap system that's a little bit more stringent on the board to make sure that this talent is getting spread rather than just keeping the haves and the have-nots?
It's a hard one because kind of some days I kind of think, for the good of the league, maybe we do need to look at salary caps. But then on the other side of it, you think, well, there are ambitious clubs who have got the wherewithal and do want to get out there and invest in their women's programme. Yeah. And if they're not going to be rewarded for that, then how long will that investment stay for? So it's a horrible question to answer because you want that bigger competitive number of clubs. But it's really hard to see that if you do bring in something like a salary cap, then those clubs that have historically backed their women, will they then maybe not back them as much because they're not necessarily getting the rewards in that they could have got, I guess, under the old systems.
And you don't want to get to that stage where you're forcing a women's program on an existing club because things don't get done when you're made to do it. They get done because you want to do it, and it's the right thing to do. And I think that needs to be a conversation that needs to happen between, I feel, Football Australia, the state federations and the clubs to say, hey, this is what you should be doing if you want to embed yourself in the community. And so don't get me wrong, there's been conversations about some clubs only going down that women's program line because it's the flavour of the month and it's the way to get funding and everything else like that. So that's a real cynical way to look at it, but it is happening nonetheless. But a hugely interesting conversation around what it looks like next year. With your ear to the ground, does it look like it might be a Sorrento that's likely to come up?
I mean, it's going to depend on obviously where teams finish in the league, because from what I understand, if a team finishes top that is either not eligible for promotion or opts not to take it, then if the second place team is eligible and wants to take it, then they would play off against whoever finishes bottom of the NPL women's, is what I understand.
And there's a bit of stadia criteria and financial criteria that's involved as well, isn't there?
That's right, yeah. So, we know, the likes of Sorrento and Mandurah City would like, I think they would like to come up. I don't want to talk for them, but that's what I believe anyway. So it's going to depend on, final league positions. Cause I know, there's chance that teams that have an NPL team already could finish top of State League One still as well, which complicates things even further. So I think, there is a possibility that there could be 2 teams that might put their hand up for promotion for next season.
Watch this space, and we'll keep our ear to the ground as far as that goes. Ben, let's have a bit of a chat about Impetus Football. Of course, you primarily write for Impetus Football in addition to doing the match reports for the Perth Soccer Club, mate. Just give everyone a bit of a recap about Impetus Football, what it's all about.
Well, it started just after the World Cup in France. That was 2019. I'd kind of always wanted to sort of go into journalism and that. And then when I finished school, my undergrad was in media. But back then, which was like the end of the 90s, the sort of the opportunities weren't what there are now in terms of doing media stuff. So I needed the job, so I trained to become a teacher. So I've been in primary education for 20 odd years ever since then. But I saw in women's football, it's like a really friendly community, it's a supportive community, and it doesn't matter sort of who you are, what your story is, what your backstory is. Everyone's sort of in it together in a way, and it kind of came into be sort of quite a warm and welcoming community. And back then, where I was living wasn't too far from from Kingsmeadow, where Chelsea women played the majority of their games at that point. So it was a half-hour journey to watch some incredible players. And so then it kind of just got to the point that I'd always wanted to get into writing, so it came out through that as a site sort of done in my own bedroom, as it were. And then one particular article on Sam Kerr about sort of the abuse that she was getting from the English media when she was new at Chelsea, because the chances the goals weren't going in, there was the misses were there, and people were convinced that Chelsea had been sold a dud, which they've kind of been forced through their words quite severely since then. So sort of an article in response to that kind of caught a lot of attention, and it kind of went from there. And then what was a one-person site gradually became a three people site, and it's sort of grown consistently from there. And we've got people on 4 continents doing stuff now. We're all volunteers. No one's paid. The site doesn't make any money. It costs us money, effectively. It costs us money to do what we do, but we do it because we love it.
No, absolutely, mate, and it's very much appreciated, and I'm sure plenty get a lot out of it, because it is quite niche. And I use that in a respectful term, but it is become a go-to for women's football particularly, and you can check up where all the Aussie players are doing their thing around the world, and it's a real go-to to find any information that you might need. How did the link come between particularly the NPL on the other side of the world and Impetus Football?
Yeah, when I've been coming to Australia for 25 years, I've got family here in WA. So I've been coming to Perth and visiting them, and Perth was where I first saw my first ever women's game, back in the first year, what was in the W League. It was the Glory against, they were Queensland Roar back then, Brisbane Roar now. And, the WA is always kind of lost in the discussion about when it comes to the round ball game. It's all about Sydney, it's all about Melbourne Victory, it's all about Melbourne City and so on. And I just kind of think, there's always been so many stories of players and of clubs and of people that are involved in the game here that just aren't given the sort of the platform I think that they should have been. So I thought, well, I've got this website that I'm working with. Let's cover the NPL in WA after the A-League women's season's over. So it kind of originally I was covering Perth Glory Junior A-League season. Then this is the 4th year that I've been covering the NPL now. Going back a little bit last year, so January 24. We kind of got to the point where the site was getting way too big for one person to sort of be doing everything. So I decided to step back from a lot of things. So, there's different people now, separate people running the UK coverage. There's a group of us running the Australian coverage. There's other people sort of running coverage in different other parts of the world. And that allowed me to sort of write for enjoyment again, because I think when something you're doing in your spare time becomes a little bit of a chore, then you need to change it up a bit. So at that point, that's when I sort of put my hand up and wanted to sort of volunteer for doing some stuff for Perth Soccer Club and also for Perth Glory, because they've always been my teams. I managed to sort of keep it hidden for 3 years that Perth Soccer Club were my team in the NPL, and I kind of got away with it, but that hasn't been the case anymore, which is absolutely fair enough. So
everyone's got a team. I don't care if you're Martin Tyler or anyone else.
Well, funny enough, Martin Tyler's team is Woking, the men's team that I go and watch in England. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why a couple of weeks ago, I sort of stepped back from covering the NPL for Impetus, because, there was the suggestion from a few people that the site doesn't look to be neutral when someone that's covering it is producing content for one specific team.
I'm going to jump in there, Ben, and I'm going to say that is absolutely rubbish. And anyone knows the media landscape these days will know that there's many of us that work for, as someone who's been recently accused of certain things, that works and does our best for many different outlets, and we do try and keep our biases and everything else to the side, but
do you know what? But then that got me thinking. If I'm watching, sort of doing the NPL stuff in England, it's like a 4-hour job, and those 4 months of the year when it sort of coincides with the English women's season means that effectively I don't get to a women's game in England for those 4 months. Yeah. So actually, this now means that I only ever need to watch Perth Soccer Club's games. And that means that I can now have a season ticket at Arsenal women watching their Matildas this season. So as far as I'm concerned, it's win-win.
Once you work out the time difference, it's football all day.
It's win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, I'm going to put you on the spot just before we let you go. I want you to pick a standout player from the women's Perth women's this year that's likely to take out the Tal Carp medal in a few weeks' time.
Do you know, that is really, really hard, because where do you go? Do you look at the sort of unbelievable defence that we've had this season, or do you look at the incredible attack that we've got? And that's hard. I mean, there's a big part of me that wants to say somebody like April Nosson, who's been she's just immense at the back. Yeah. On the other side of me, I want to sort of give obviously a shout out to Jess, who's come back from injury. Yeah. She had a pretty serious injury that took her out of pretty much the whole of the last third of last season, if not even longer. And she came back at the start of this year, pretty much thrown straight back on.
So there we have it. A big thanks to Ben Gilby. Apologies for that little bit of a break at the end in audio. We had a little bit of a slight technical glitch, but ultimately another fantastic chat with Ben Gilby, and he certainly knows his stuff when it comes to the women's game, both here in WA and abroad. Make sure you check out his stuff at Impetus Football. Right, we are in celebration mode, but there's still work to be done. Let's have a quick look ahead to the weekend. We have got a massive Saturday coming up down there at Dorrien Gardens. It does start early. It is a bit of a super Saturday. 18's kicking off at 9 a.m. 23's men at 11. Our senior men, just take this on board, senior men this week will kick off at 1 p.m, followed by our senior women again in action against Balcatta. 2 games to go in the league for the Perth SC women's side, but and then we'll start to look forward to that top 4 cup. Geez, wouldn't it be fantastic to be able to pull off the double in season 2025? Very much looking forward to that, and we're absolutely 100% in the corner of Tom Klemovich and the girls as they go on their quest to see if they can finish with a couple of bits of silverware in season 2025. A big thanks to everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to keep spreading the words about the Perth SC podcast, now available on Spotify, on Apple, through YouTube Music. Enjoy football this weekend, and come on the Azzurri.